We've all been focused on chip shortages for across the board, for technology, companies like Apple, for auto companies. You're saying behind that is demand that you might not be seeing because you can't measure it as well, because and Apple's negotiated better than most, but the demand behind the scenes is greater than the market is appreciating right now, Dan?
That's exactly. I think demand outstripping supply by about 15% in terms of iPhone 13s. Yeah, and I think that's really the key. There's a lot of gyrations in the supply chain as we've seen. But what this ultimately means is that the street's underestimating the growth in terms of this iPhone 13, sort of the second step of the super cycle playing out. China remains strong. And I think on a sum of the parts, this is not just $3 trillion. We could see this ultimately $3.5 trillion, especially as this all plays out along with services.
Talk about, Dan, I see now the synergy between self-driving cars and Apple Glass. So we're all going to be walking around living in the metaverse wearing these glasses. So who's going to drive our cars? We need self-driving cars because we're going to be running into to buildings and everything else if we're wearing these glasses. But next year is the year for these things?
Well, I think that's the important thing. I mean, our checks for the first time to us have almost confirmed that Apple Glass now will come out in 2022. And that's important because this is something that, upwards, in our opinion, potentially 1,000 engineers have been working on this. There's always sort of concern about if it's going to come out. We believe 2022, by summer, we do get the Apple Glass, the mixed AR, VR headset. We think price points could be about $1,000. And this is key because we believe this could add about $20 per share to the sum of the parts for Apple. And that's not baked into the stock, in our opinion.
Since it's split, that's a lot, isn't it, based on where it is right now, 173. Will you make a case for the services business now, which, unbeknownst, well, not unbeknownst, but quietly has turned into a complete juggernaut? What's that worth?
Well, I think that's really been the big part of the re-rating. And even though investors have, hated $1 trillion, despised it at $2 trillion, and really screaming potentially at $3 trillion, we believe services, that's worth about $1.5 trillion. Whoa. That's going to be about $80 billion annual revenue stream. That's a big part of the re-rating in Apple. And even when you look at this Epic in terms of the stay that they got yesterday, I mean, that was 1% to 2% of revenue that the street thought potentially was lost, that now, at least for the next few years, does not really come off of numbers. I think you put this all together, it's sort of golden age now for Apple in this renaissance of growth that Cook's leading out of Cupertino.